A lot of brands are still figuring out, should we be doing e-commerce? Yeah, you were supposed to be doing it 15 years ago.
Welcome back to the Marketing Playbook, presented by Details Interactive. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 36, and today's guest is Sabir Semerkant. Sabir is a 20-plus year e-commerce revenue growth hacker and founder of Growth by Sabir. Prior to creating Growth, Sabir founded and has grown e-commerce channels for brands like The Vitamin Shoppe, Perry Ellis, Ashley Stewart, Puritan's Pride, and many more. Sabir also hosts a weekly live show, #ThisWeekWithSabir, that is multi-streamed on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn that brings industry experts together to share their expert insights. Before we get started, a quick thank you, as always, to Max Branstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook podcast. Today, I'm joined by Sabir Semerkant. Sabir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. It's an honor to be here on your show.
Well, I really appreciate you making the time. I know you're busy. I will have to say that you may have the longest LinkedIn page that I have ever seen. You must go to great lengths to work that out.
I obsess about any optimization. So when it comes to LinkedIn profile optimization, any opportunity you give me space there, I'm going to figure out how to best utilize it.
Well, you certainly have. That's great. So we're recording. We're in the early part of May. It's nice to finally be able to say on one of these shows that we seemingly are getting closer and closer to some life of normalcy. How are you and your family doing?
Doing well. I think it's this has become the new normal. So it's almost like, if a friend asks you for a coffee and you almost have to think twice. Do you really want to leave your cozy home to go have that coffee, or go to a restaurant to eat something,
Yeah, well, hopefully we're going to get back to something where we all feel confident to do that. Lots of ways, because your background is so vast. Lots of ways to take this. I like to start the shows getting a tidbit from you. Is there something remarkable about you that you would? It's always hard for people to talk about themselves, but is there something remarkable that sets you apart from others that you work with?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. I rarely talk about myself. I mean, I always talk about the guests I work with and the clients I work with and stuff like that. It's rarely about me. I wouldn't call it remarkable. I think it's just a personality trait. Having empathy, being patient. But when I say that, it has to do with being patient with people, being patient with process, and really going through the experience rather than knowing where you want to land. It's more like going through it, because the deep scars you get on your back is the thing that sets you apart than the people who just talk about things, versus experiencing the journey.
And your first story, we talk about the first story, where you grew up. Oftentimes on the show, I'm talking to entrepreneurs, and it turns out that their family had a store, or they were entrepreneurial also. So the guest had some insights of what life might be like that. What's your first story?
So my first story, I remember it very clearly. My dad owned a toy store. So you're talking about being entrepreneurial. So I take a lot of traits from him, and I do miss him. He passed on about 20 years ago when I was young. I think I remember that toy store. I remember him rewarding me any of the toys in the store, or rewarding me with money based on certain tasks I did in the store, because it was our family business. It was not like he worked there. He owned that toy store. And everybody loved coming to him and talking to him about their kids. And when I was in the store, most of the customers, because I was a kid, they would ask me what I would like, and I would give them my preference, and they ended up buying that thing that I brought up in the store. During that time, I also learned, I mean, being a kid, I did not know. I just knew how to count. So my dad would ask me to do inventory. Now I know it's called inventory. Back then, I was just counting and I was writing it down on paper. At that time, when I was that young, there were no computers being utilized in businesses. So you would write it down in almost like a ledger entry in a book to say this product and this is the count. This is the product, this is the count. And whatever I had counted, my elder brother, who's 2 years older than me, would recount my count to make sure that the two of us were in sync and we didn't miscount. So I
That's
clearly
funny.
remember that. And having grown up, I started working very young too. Anything that came along, I just never hesitated doing it. You know, I never said no. I always said yes to trying it, even if I didn't know what I was doing. What happened was I ended up learning it very quickly, and making it my own. You know, whatever that process was.
You when you got to college, you studied computer science. What was the impetus for that? And that seems seemingly fast forwarding into the career that you've had, and we'll talk about that. Probably was a very helpful kind of study to have.
Actually, I have a funny story around getting to decide to become a computer science major in college. When I was young, just like I said, my dad was doing this with us two brothers at that time. I have a younger brother, but he's much younger than me. He actually traveled. When he traveled, he asked us, like, he couldn't take everybody, so he went with my mom and with my younger brother on this vacation, and we stayed with our uncles and aunts. He said that, well, you cannot go, but what can I bring back for you that you guys would like, for me and my brother? And at that time, we had just learned about computers because computers were making it into homes at that time. So we said, oh, we heard from our brother, from our friends, that Atari 600 XL is a pretty cool computer to have. Bring us one of those. We would love for you to bring that. So he travels, goes on vacation, comes back. He does not bring Atari 600. He brings back Commodore 64. And at that time, we did not know what a Commodore 64 was. In fact, what he had brought us was a brand new computer, brand new model, the latest and greatest. We didn't realize that. We were very angry at him and we're very unhappy with him for having bought that. And he bought a bunch of games for us. So we turned it on, we figured it out. We were playing soccer games, Olympics, Pesky Painter, Popeye. There were so many games that came with it. So we played it. And then after we got bored, there was a manual that came with the box. So we opened up the manual and said, what is this for? We started reading it, and it actually gave us instructions on how to change the background of the screen, how to change the foreground of the screen, how to make the computer make sounds through coding. So as kids, we said, okay, let's tinker, let's play with it. So we started coding this stuff, and then we did one of those goofy things. I don't know if you've ever done programming. You say input, tell me your name, and you say Mark. And then it responds back, Mark is whatever. As a kid, we played a lot of pranks, a lot of abusive names and stuff like that. So it would say that, and it will keep on printing it on the screen. So it became fun for us. And then we started playing with more coding and figuring it out on our own by just paying attention to it was a basic book at that time. And we figured all of that stuff out. And then we became very good at it. I was 6. My elder brother was like 8 or 9 years old. And ended up that we wrote our first program. It was a piano program. Mind you, we had never played a piano, never owned a piano, but we figured out what the notes were and learned that. And then we put it into the computer. So when you use the keyboard on a computer, it made same sounds as a piano. And then we wrote our first game. The two of us wrote our first game because by that time we knew how to move things on the screen and stuff like that. It was just basically a childhood hobby, basically. Fast forward to college. Did very well in high school, went to college, and I wanted to become a pre-med student. And so I go and talk to my guidance counselor. The guidance counselor goes like, well, you want to become a doctor? And in fact, I wanted to become a neurosurgeon, not even a regular doctor, neurosurgeon. Oh, for that, it will be 16 years. I'm like, what do you mean 16 years? I already had 12. You mean I need to go to school for another 16? Yeah, it's about another 12 years, and then you have to do 4 years of residency, and until before they allow you to cut anybody open. I said, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, the guidance counselor was nice enough to ask, what's your hobby? What's your interest? I said, I love just working on computers. I've been programming since I was 6. She went like, well, we have a computer science program. It's brand new. If you're interested, you could join that and major in computer science. So actually, I went through college to literally get a degree for something that I have been doing since childhood. And that's how I got my degree.
That's amazing. And then, so you come out of school, you spent quite a bit of time consulting, and I gather that that gave you some perspective of how to interact with with clients. What was your consulting? What were the verticals that you were involved in there?
Initially, I was doing a lot of Windows programming at that time. So I was a hardcore programmer at that time, a hacker. Internet came about, and I started getting clients. So I'm a founding team member of thestreet.com with Jim Cramer from Mad Money. I'm a founding team member of that startup. So I did that. From there, I had other opportunities. I also was a founding team member of Tommy Hilfiger e-commerce at that time. So this was at the very beginning of internet commercialization. So I'm talking about like mid 90s, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And what happened was I just became really good at e-commerce businesses and getting them up and running because the clients would see immediate return on their investment, and it was not just a branding exercise. And a transition happened when I joined Vitamin Shop, and I was still playing this very hardcore tech role that I would usually play in a very much leadership role. Founder of Vitamin Shop, Jeff Horowitz, figured out that I was not only good at the programming side of things, I really had a good knack for understanding and optimizing like transaction and the website and stuff like that. Because one of the first things I did was I completely replaced the search engine on vitaminshop.com with a search engine that I had written myself. I had designed it myself because at that time there was no e-commerce search engine. Once we deployed it, the site went from sub 1% conversion rate to 12% conversion rate.
Wow.
After the new search engine was deployed. And from there, basically the owner of Vitamin Shop said, well, why don't you concentrate on running the business? We'll hire engineers for you to work for you. You can tell them what to do, they'll do it. Your time will be better spent in scaling this business. Well, I said, well, in college, I never took a business class. I never took a marketing class. I don't know what, he goes like, well, I'm going to teach you the vitamin business. You have to pick up a couple of marketing books and stuff to learn from it. So I became kind of self-taught. And now in this current iteration, most people who know me, they know me as a growth hacker that turns around businesses and stuff. But I'm self-taught, and I've been doing this now for the past 20 years now.
We're going to come back to growth hacking in a second, but since we've been on the technology trail here, so so much of what you've done in your background was technology related. So much of what you do today is helping folks with technology. How do you deal with clients that have this, we'll call it the shiny object syndrome, where they want to have the newest and the best and the greatest, as opposed to sometimes just being focused on the nuts and bolts of putting a site out that people can shop from?
Most of my clients, they come through referral for me, right? So somebody in my network recommended me to talk to them. I rarely do any lead generation or anything like that. So my contacts rarely to never come cold. So they're already warmed up. And when I'm introduced as a person who would tell you exactly what's wrong with the business. And I'm going to tell you how to fix it. So if you're a person who likes shiny things, I'm not the right person for you, because I might tell you a very boring thing that you need to do in order to fix your business. The boring thing could be, for example, even though it's not really boring, it's really important, is fixing the operations of the business, for example. It's not sexy. It's not front facing. The customers don't see a shiny website with flash and with videos and stuff like that. It's behind the scenes. And it's the heroes that's the last mile when the consumer gets a great experience or horrible experience. I might tell you something as boring as that, and you should be ready to hear it and ready to make a change in order to improve things. Like it's possible that you may have an amazing marketer on the front end that's doing an amazing thing, delivering great value, great customers, the ROAS, right? Return on advertising spend, cost per order, everything is fabulous. But when it comes to product delivery, that company is sucking. It's in a horrible shape. The problem is nothing to do with marketing. It has to do with operations. You need to fix that. So if the person is have a kind of shiny object syndrome, they will start thinking that, oh, I need to do more TikTok videos. I need to do Snapchat. Oh, I need to hire these Uber mega influencers that to improve the business. Well, when I go through my audit, I might see it has nothing to do with that. In fact, the CMO is doing a fabulous job on that. The problem is more in customer service. So when people call you, live chat with you, or contact you, they're having a horrible experience because you delivered your last mile delivery of your service or product was horrible. That's what needs to be fixed, not the front end. Or it might be the other way around. Through that audit, operations might be doing an amazing job of delivery, but on the front end, we're not delivering the right audience, the right creative, the right ad, the right experience on the website, the right experience on the mobile app. Even the content you're delivering through YouTube is not on point to your customer, to your audience. You're going very broad, for example, and you think that broad, to me, broad is spraying and praying, that something great is somebody's gonna hit. If you make it more niche and focused, I think you can get your point across a lot faster.
Our listeners can't see, you and I can see each other. I'm shaking my head up and down. I'm getting a headache from doing so because all the things that you're saying, is kind of the stuff that I like to preach. It's what I call the basic blocking and tackling. And, you've got to be able to do that before you can do some of the fancy and glitzy stuff. And so many businesses just don't pay attention to the details. I had a consulting business that I called Details Interactive. And it came from the fact that people used to say about me, geez, he's paying attention to all these details. Why do they matter? Well, they really do matter, oftentimes in these businesses. So I hear you. Again, you've had some really neat experiences. I'm guessing many of the listeners will know a business called VaynerMedia, and a fellow named Gary Vaynerchuk. For those two people who don't know that company or Gary, tell us a little bit about that, and more importantly, what was your role there?
Sure. So Gary Vaynerchuk, his social media handle in most cases is Gary V. He's a social media icon, an entrepreneur. He's been around for a long time. I mean, he started from his family business where he grew it. I think it was from $3 million to $30 million in a very short period of time, primarily through doing these YouTube videos at the time when YouTube was in its infancy. It's like nowadays when somebody talks about Clubhouse, for instance, and the kind of success they're having. YouTube was in its infancy at that time, and Gary did a great job of producing content where he was doing wine tasting and wine recommendations and stuff like that for his family business, for his dad's business, basically. And it took off from there really well to the point that when he received a lot of notoriety of getting customers and growing that business through primary use of YouTube and social media. And at that time, the Twitter was coming about, and Facebook was also a baby at that time. And he started utilizing those platforms. What happened was a lot of brands and people started coming to him and asking him how they wanted his formula to be applied to their business because he had found success with it. And from there grew VaynerMedia, and that's how to bring those kind of services in an agency model from a guy who had never run an agency, never knew anything about agencies. And I think that was a differentiator. His superpower was delivering an amazing solution to grow your business, and that's what turned into reality for a lot of businesses that came to him to help them in the early stages to be the first ones to break into their category with YouTube, with Twitter, with Facebook, and other social media platforms where they could tell their stories in a very different format. At that time, it's like today. I'll give you a reference to today. Like if someone walks up to you and talks about cryptocurrencies and investing in blockchain and stuff like that, you're gonna look at them cross-eyed. The same thing, the same kind of reactions I have gotten in my past when I talked about e-commerce and people putting down their credit card and purchasing from this thing called website. And same thing applied to him when he would tell a story and how to make businesses win and grow using social media. So that's his kind of background story. My story overlaps with him because the space that he took up for co-working, I ended up actually sharing it with him, that co-working space. And at that time, VaynerMedia was, I think, 5 or 6 people. and then I would interact with the OGs of VaynerMedia at that time, because I was running my own company in that same space. It was Sunshine Suites in Tribeca. So that's where we serendipitously met at that time. We became good friends at that time. I would provide some guidance because of my background in e-commerce and stuff like that. They would talk about, and this was his very first book that had come out, and he would talk about the how the medium was changing and stuff. It was, we really got along really nicely, just more like peers, not necessarily working for each other. It was just, we were just great peers. And then we went our own separate ways because he outgrew the space and I sold the company. I went and I left. I was at Canon, the camera company. I was consulting for them, road mapping their business to help them with analytics and data and stuff like that, and then helping them roadmap to more growth. And I put emphasis on data being important. And I get a call from an agent asking me if I would be interested in exploring an opportunity for an agency that's interested in getting into e-commerce. And at that time, I've been involved in e-commerce since day zero of e-commerce. And I'm like, I don't know any agency that's interested in dealing with e-commerce, because it's a very different skill set. It's not like running paid media or anything like that. It's completely a different skill set. He said, oh, well, there is a small agency. The founder is very innovative and really on the edge, and he wants to do a lot of great things. I said, who is it and what company? He goes like, oh, it's a small agency called VaynerMedia. And at that time, I think they were like 150, 200 people roughly. So he goes, oh, I said, oh, VaynerMedia. I know Gary Vee. The two of us actually shared office space. A very nice guy. It's interesting. How big is VaynerMedia nowadays? He goes like, it's 200 people. Well, like, wow, they grew from 5-6 people to 200. So I said, yes.
It wasn't Gary that told this person to reach out to you then?
No, this guy just randomly, based on my LinkedIn and my background and stuff, found me. So he reaches out. I said, oh, I know Gary. Just tell him I would be interested. He knows me. I would be interested in exploring. And then I went and explored it. And I ended up, what he wanted me to do was be the founder of Vayner Commerce, which would be a sister company to VaynerMedia. So I did that. I founded Vayner Commerce for him, and I ran it for 4.5 years. And all the services that are being provided through Vayner Commerce is basically all of my brain dumps turned into services, basically into different types of services to grow businesses through e-commerce.
That's amazing. Growth hacker, right? You used the word hacker earlier in your conversation. What is a growth hacker?
So for me, I have a very different definition of it compared to what most people define it as. So most people call a person a growth hacker, somebody who can take a business literally starting at either from a zero, or it may be a business that's stale at a certain amount, like it's been sitting there for 3-4 years, 5 years, or it's a startup and it has not even broken $1 million. Can turn it overnight, being maybe 3 years, turn it into $50 million, $100 million business. So that's a typical definition of a growth hacker. A lot of people nowadays, even though they're not truly a growth hacker, they're more of a marketer. They might know Google Ads, they might know Facebook, to run ads on them. They just have to replace the word marketer to be growth hacker. And they're not really true growth hackers. They just know how to run a medium, basically. In my case, I use that word growth from a business standpoint. I use the hacker side of it from my technology background. So that's how I use those two words in that way to kind of mean growth from a business standpoint, but I utilize my technology background to really speed up that growth aspect of it. So it's a combination of those two things.
Do you have a direct-to-consumer business? I enjoy connecting with guests on this podcast because it reminds me what I love to do: strategic and tactical consulting for businesses like yours. If you'd like to speak with me about your business and see how you can add a fresh set of eyes to your team, contact me at mark@detailsinteractive.com. Now let's get back to the marketing playbook. If you talked about definition of growth hacker, if I'm one of those folks and I come to you, let's say I've got an idea for a business, I'm doing $1 million or $2 million. What's the first few things that you look at about my business, assuming that it's a product? I'd like to build it into a brand. What do I need to get from you to help me grow?
The first thing I'm going to look at, I'm not going to even look at your business or your product. I'm going to look at you, because if you're starting in that $1 million or $2 million, I want to know more about you, your personality, your tolerance to risk, your tolerance to understanding instruction, right? Or do you follow through? Would you be able to? Because the thing is, it's useless hiring someone like me to come in, right, to help you create this roadmap that's going to help you grow this business. But if you're averse to suggestion and recommendation, if you're averse to working with people, if you're averse to hiring maybe third party people that I'm going to recommend for you to take on because you don't have the skill set. In most cases, when an entrepreneur comes to me, they are really good at one thing. I can identify that one thing. They might be really good at product development. Why? Because they were doing that for Johnson and Johnson for 25 years. So that's their focus. They have no clue how to market this product. They have no idea how to talk to the consumer. They don't know how to operate a business, accounting, operations, all the things that make the business go. They have no idea because they had all of that infrastructure around them. Or they might be an engineer who is fabulous at creating mobile apps, but they're missing all of the other things from that mix. The very first thing I look at is the makeup of the team or the person that I'm talking to see what are the gaps in that person or the team, or the initial team or the small team that they have. It might be 2, 3 people, it might be 5 people. What's missing from it? Once I identify that, then when I start asking questions, it's possible that some team member might be pretending to play that role. They have no business doing it, right? They have no business, no background, no experience. It's just that when they did eeny, meeny, miny, mo, Mo was responsible for marketing, and the Mo never had any marketing background, doesn't know anything about marketing, is trying to figure out and try to do his job, and that's the first thing I look at. Number two is if you've had $1 million in sales or $2 million, to me it's a lot of data. I almost ignore the dollar amount. I look at the data. Was it 1,000 orders? Was it 10,000 orders? Was it 500 customers? How many customers came back and purchased again? If it's a replenishable business, right? You make a product, it's a soap. People run out of soap. So did they come back and buy another soap from you? If the answer is yes, great. Then it means that it's a good product people have, right? That they are trying to sell. Those are the kinds of things that I look at. Then there are ancillary things. All the mediums you play on, your website, Shopify, Amazon, Facebook, and so on and so forth. I would look at and see how you present yourself. Do you think that every time you have to spend money in order to get a sale, right? It's completely transactional business, right? So that you would keep on spending money to keep on getting sales. If the answer is yes, it is, then you really did not work on your brand at all. There is no brand equity. If I change the logo with another logo, nobody cares. As long as they're getting the product, they'll be fine. Or they'll move on and buy another product that's similar in function and features to the widget that you're selling. Those are the kind of things that I kind of take a deep dive into. And then I look at, there are so many public databases that are available that some of them I subscribe to and I pay for those subscriptions. Some of them are publicly available, just freely available to everybody, that I actually reverse engineer the category, the competition, that product itself. What are people saying? What are the sentiments? What's the share of voice? All of that kind of stuff. I do take the marketing approach to the business opportunity. And on the other side of it, I look at the technical debt that the client needs to pay in order to come up to speed. For example, they may have a Shopify site. They may not have invested well into it, and the site doesn't really perform well. And they're leaving, even though they're driving traffic, the conversion rate is sub 1%, meaning that people are showing up. You're just not giving them a great customer service, and you're not giving them a great experience on your site. So they're not really transacting with your business. There are technical issues with any business that I come across. In most cases nowadays, there has been a gigantic shift from desktop experience to mobile experience, for instance. And a lot of sites on the web, they are desktop first and maybe mobile optimized, maybe. And now because Google has made it a priority now, if your site is not mobile optimized or mobile first, you are getting deranked on search engine optimization, meaning that organic search traffic that you will get, it will be deranked. That's really bad because a good brand that has done a great job and done a great job with organic search, they would get 20% of their revenue from organic search, meaning free search, 20%. Otherwise, they're paying that 20% in paid search and paid social,
Or they're not getting the traffic,
or not getting the traffic at all.
right? That's the issue. Yeah, good stuff there. I think you call out about mobile first, which is, we've been talking about mobile first, for years. Yet there's still many brands that I come across when they're showing what a new homepage is going to look like. All they look at as a team is what the homepage is, what the desktop version is going to look like, and then it's oftentimes responsive, into mobile, and it is what it is. So
And typically those review sessions are on a gigantic screen, like an
yeah,
iMac,
yeah.
and they're showing, and the designer is so happy to be showing this incredible looking, beautiful site.
Yeah, except that 90% of the people are looking at an iPhone 11 and it's not going
In
to
the United
render.
States, it's 82%. 82% of people are looking at on an iPhone. 18% might be looking on Android and similar devices.
Yeah, it's incredible. We obviously are, this last year has changed so much from a digital perspective, and you're knee deep in digital. What's changed for you, either from the perspective of the kinds of customers, clients that come to you, or the questions that your clients ask? Is there a difference than it was pre-COVID?
The big difference is because I've been in this industry for such a long time, the things I was expecting to happen in 2035 got compressed into 2020, all of it. That's great news. Bad news for businesses that did not overemphasize digital experience, social experience, e-commerce experience, and also Amazon, for example. They are the ones that got hurt the most, because as soon as there was a lockdown in any area, and if your shop was there, you were done, basically. If the shops were not allowed to be open for 3 months, that's it. For a lot of businesses run month to month. So if you were not, whether you own a hair salon, a tiny hair salon, all the way to if you had a chain and you thought that your business was a retail business and not a multi-channel business, you got hurt in a big way. So that's one thing. A lot of conversations got accelerated. I can tell you that at the beginning of COVID, starting in March, I worked 18 hours a day because that's how much of a demand I had on my time from my clients. And I was working on a lot of clients and helping them strategize quickly and mobilize very quickly to becoming an e-commerce company overnight. Like literally, I had to do that with a lot of brands. And thank God their businesses were saved because of this transition and this quick type of a transition from being a traditional retailer. And believe it or not, we're in 2021. E-commerce has existed for 20 plus years now. A lot of brands are still figuring out, should we be doing e-commerce? Yeah, you were supposed to be doing it 15 years ago, not today. But let's speed up the conversation and get you going. That's one thing that happened. The other thing, and I just looked at Amazon's revenue growth over quarter, Q3 of 2020, which we are in the depths of COVID and pandemic and lockdown. That quarter beat out Q4 of 2019. Q3 tends to be a boring period because all of that transactions, all of it moved over. That quarter, Amazon's quarter was $96 billion compared to Q4 of 2019, which was about 86 billion or something like that. With a boring quarter, they beat out their most exciting quarter in the prior year. And that's how much it grew. A lot of e-commerce companies, I mean, Amazon is just an example of it, but you can look at Etsy and you could look at so many other businesses that do e-commerce. It just skyrocketed during that time. What has happened as far as clients and the client mix and the conversations related to should we be doing e-commerce actually died. It's more like we have to do e-commerce and we need to do it today. We need to do it today. Can you get us up and running as quickly as possible? And that's how pandemic, even though it's a horrible thing, and there are so many people losing their loved ones and so on, and especially what's going on in India currently. I'm from New York, so I can empathize with them and sympathize with them. New York was going through hell and high water when we were going through that last year around this time, basically. But and I pray for them for them. But the positive side of when you have adversity like that, and how adversity pushes the consumers and people to take on new forms of interaction. Schools are no longer, you don't have to wake up to go to school. You're attending it through Zoom or Blackboard, and there are so many online schooling tools. Meetings, I don't have to jump into a plane to go and see somebody in Texas. I can have that meeting. I can have a podcast or a YouTube channel, and my guests could be in Sweden, they could be in Australia, they could be in New Zealand, and now it has become the norm. I don't have to explain that to them. I don't have to fly and to go sit down with them to look at their face, and they can look at my face. I can see them through the computer. I think a lot of those behaviors that were foreign to people, even now, what I say is even grandmas know how to FaceTime now. So it has become part of our culture. The education part of it has become easier. Things like you don't have to go shopping. I can get Instacart to deliver from Costco. I don't have to do that. I can go on Amazon and buy anything if I want to get anything that I need. And that time now belongs to me. If I need to order something from a restaurant that's local to me, I can get on Uber Eats, Grubhub, Seamless, DoorDash, any of those kind of apps. And if I want ice cream from Chicago, and even though I live in New York, I can go on Goldbelly app. That's an app that allows you to buy ice cream, and it will be delivered to you next day, frozen, so that you can enjoy that ice cream from that Chicago ice cream parlor that you really like. So I think a lot of those things have now become the norm, and hopefully the adoption has even fastened up and makes my job easier. That means also a lot of companies that get into e-commerce, whether it's going direct to consumer with Shopify or BigCommerce or any of those kind of tools, or they're selling it on eBay or Amazon, because the consumers now know where to go to buy.
Yeah, the world has gotten a lot smaller. That's for sure. Last question, which I have asked this of many different people, and it's probably a long answer, but I'm going to ask you to give me kind of just a quick view. We talk a lot about attribution and media mix modeling, and it's complicated. Nobody seems to have the right answer. But kind of boil it down, especially for some of the clients that you have. They come to you, they want to try to grow to their business, but they say to you, geez, I have X dollars. I just don't know where to spend it, and I don't know how to measure its performance. What are the the 2 or 3 most important things that you tell them?
Number one thing I tell every one of my clients is no consumer's journey is ever linear. You know that 1975 marketing funnel that looks like this? I'm actually making a
A
sign of
V,
what
right?
a V funnel. It starts with brand equity and awareness, and then somehow magically on the other side of it comes out a customer. Feels like a meat grinder. That's what it looks like. In case of the social and digital age that we're living in, that doesn't happen, right? I mean, if you look at your behavior, you might see something on TV, like let's say given a certain age group, right? You're seeing something on TV. You don't jump on your computer to go, or on a phone to go buy that thing, or jump into your car and run and buy that thing from a local retail store. You don't, that never happens, right? You're hit there, you might see it in a magazine. Then let's say if you're digitally savvy, you're picking up your Facebook, Instagram, you're hearing some comments, then you go on Amazon, you search the product, you see the reviews, you see it would be something that you might be interested in. Then you go on YouTube and you want to find out if it's a technical product, right? How would you manage the changing of the battery or whatever it is, right? You would go through those journeys. To me, those are bubbles of experience that exist. It's not a linear experience. You have to be, as a brand, what has changed from 1975 or the 1980s model of marketing to now, 2021, is that brands need to be omnipresent, digitally omnipresent, in a world where the consumers exist. That's what needs to happen. If the brand is not omnipresent where the consumer is, it's a loss for the brand. Because, I mean, the consumer could be finding another brand that matches their specs, and they'll buy that thing. In 1980s, it was the opposite, right? You had a retailer that represented brands, and then you would go in and as a consumer go into that store, and you had a certain number of selections that were crafted by the retail owner, and you would buy that thing that was. the choices are now driven by consumers and their preferences and people that they trust. And it's not celebrities, it's not commercials, it's influencers, it's customer reviews, it's you and me writing that review on Amazon about that product, that why we like it. Or I have a gluten allergy, and my review would say this product is gluten free, and this is how I mix it with this and that and whatever to come up with my recipe. We are the heroes now. The consumers are the heroes, and they're listening to other consumers. So the brand just needs to be omnipresent in that experience. So now talking about attribution and where should I put my money, the first thing I prioritize is the traffic that's coming to your, let's say if it's a website, for example, the number one thing I prioritize is there is a retargeting campaign. People are somehow showing up to your site, whether you're driving them through paid, they're coming through email newsletter you're sending out, or Google is helping you through organic traffic, or somebody linked to you because they like what you're presenting to them, whether it's product or service or blog article or whatever it is. You're getting that traffic. How are you retargeting where you can reach them through Facebook, through Google, through Pinterest, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever? Because all of those footprints of consumers exist on all of those platforms. Are you present where the consumers are, the consumers who interacted with you already? When it comes to acquisition, I do prioritize first Google and Facebook. Why? Because most of the traffic for consumers happens from there. And the third place tends to be, from a shopping standpoint, Amazon. That's it. Those are the three platforms. Now, if you run out of those platforms, then you can go into secondary platforms, or you can go secondary platforms because it's less competition there, so that you can win on those platforms first, so that you can grow your business, and then you can go with a bigger budget to go to Google and Facebook, and and if you're playing on Amazon, you could do advertisement on Amazon too. But I would prioritize retargeting and remarketing first.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, look, we're out of time. Where can people reach out to you on social media and get some more words of wisdom?
So the best place to go would be my website, growthbysabir.com, growthbysabir.com. And from there, you'll see my links to my YouTube channel, where I have all of my live shows that I do, where I interview people. It's a masterclass. My show is a masterclass in every topic related to social, digital, and e-commerce. So they can go there and consume that. I do have a blog on my site that they could read and subscribe to. And they can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. All of the links are on my website.
That's great. Something tells me you don't get a lot of sleep.
No, actually, I love sleeping. I make sure I get 8 hours of sleep every night.
Oh my God, I can't remember the last time I got 8 hours in one night. Anyway, Sabir, it was great to talk to you. Nice to see you as well. Appreciate the conversations we've had prior today, and certainly this one. So thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you, Mark, for having me on your show, and thank you for the audience for listening in.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Sabir Semerkant for coming in the marketing playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, mobile optimization is crucial. We've been talking about mobile first for a long time, but many brands are still focused at looking at their sites on desktop and large monitors. Look at your site the way customers do. Also, Google continues to penalize brands for websites that are not mobile optimized, at least as to how they define it. Number 2, sometimes the non-sexy behind-the-scenes aspects of your business are the most important. You can have the best product and the best creative, but if you neglect the operational pieces of the business, today's customers will seek alternatives. You've heard it here before. The devil is in the details. And number 3, a customer's journey to your site is not linear. If you're still thinking that customers only engage with you in 1 or 2 channels, you're wrong. They are on Google, on many of the social channels. They get your emails and mobile messages. You have to assume that there are many touch points before and during their decision-making process. Be certain you can track that journey and use the details to adjust your media mix. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at Details Interact and learn more at detailsinteractive.com. Until next time, once again, the devil is in the details.